Hi crafty friends and welcome to another Pixie Dust Designs video. Today we are going to be creating a croissant card using the mushroom mug die set. You are able to create these cute little croissants using those three pieces that I pointed out. I did die cut those out 6 times from watercolor paper to create 6 completed croissants. You see many watercolor pigments to the left of the screen, but I only end up using the Rusty Hinge and Wild Honey watercolor pencils to add color to these croissants. Here I'm just laying out all the pieces, ensuring that I have the 3 pieces that will create the croissant. And once I figure out that I have everything, I begin gluing these using some precision glue. These are super easy to assemble. You just line up the edges and you will have your completed croissants. Once those are all assembled, we move on to watercoloring. And again, I did die cut these out of watercolor paper. So I'm just going to add some water to wet my pencils. Again, I'm using the Rusty Hinge and the Wild Honey pencils, and we are going to add color. I use a tiny brush to make sure everything is blended and all of my croissants have the look that I am going for. Once they are all heat set, I move on to building my background. Keeping things simple, I just grab an A2 white card panel and my Salvage Patina Distress Oxides and a small brush, and I just kind of add the ink all over the place to give a blended out look for the background. I also want this to remain very subtle, and I try to concentrate the color within the center of the card panel. I then just grab the croissants and try to figure out how I want them to line up. Now that I pretty much know how I want to arrange these croissants, which is just basically the regular way lined up, I grab my Misty and the Kisses mini stamp from Pixie Dust Designs, and I add those croissants into my Misty, and we are going to add these cute little faces from that stamp set onto each one. There are only 4 faces, so I will stamp 2 of those twice to give all of my croissants little faces and expressions. I am not worried about placement. I don't mind if it's wonky because I want them each to have like their own little personality, especially if some of these faces are duplicate. I don't want them to look like twins. I want each one to be unique in that way. So once I've lined those up, I am just going to use some Onyx pigment ink and we are going to add on those faces. Do not forget to heat set them. That is my number 1 tip for this step. I did forget to heat set mine and I had a bit of smudging, but if you do have smudging, just grab a sand eraser and remove it as soon as possible. But please remember, if you are going to use a pigment ink, whether it's just some Onyx pigment ink or VersaFine ink, heat set your faces before you do anything else. I do go back in with a white Jelly Roll pen just to add the dots and highlights to the eyes. I also kind of highlight around the eyes to make sure that you know if things are round. I fill in the mouth, but this is how my faces on these 6 croissants turn out. I further add highlight using the Jelly Roll pen as well as my sand eraser because it will remove some of that color. So it just add a little bit of subtlety to the croissants and their highlighting. And then I just went back over everything with my Jelly Roll pen and made sure that the white popped a bit more. Now it's time to grab the foam strips or foam squares here, and I'm adding those onto the back of each croissant because I want them to be popped up onto my card panel. So it's just one square per croissant, and I do play around with my placement again and try to make sure that I space out faces that are alike so they're not side by side. I also have more smudging or just little areas that I want to fix. So I use my sand eraser. I also take this opportunity to add in more color and contrast. So I have a small brush with some of the rusty hinge on there, and I'm just making sure that spaces that I want it to be more pronounced are, and I'm just doing a little bit of touch ups. Before I put each piece down, I do remove the backing and just put them in place. So wherever they land, that is where they are. I do a bit more highlighting because, of course, with croissants, there are flaky layers. So I just wanted that texture to kind of be represented on these croissants with all of the colors and the watercolor marks. I just wanted all of that to create a more 3D look and textured look to these little croissants. For my sentiment, I'm going to use the With Love from the mini stamp set, and I'm going to add that on at the bottom of my panel using some VersaFine ink. Again, heat set this so you have no smudging and no issues. I then decide that I want to cut this down a bit and pop it up on some light blue cardstock. So I'm going to cut this down to about 4 and 5 1/4, maybe slightly larger. I'm basing it off of my croissant placement, but my goal size was 4 and 5 1/4 when I cut this down. To finish this card off, I simply mat it onto that A2 sized light blue card panel that is similar in color to the salvage patina that we added onto that white card panel. And there we have our completed card. Thank you for joining me today for another Pixie Dust Designs tutorial. I am Natasha and hope that you have a wonderful day. Please head over to the Pixie Dust VIP Club and Instagram for more information on this release.